My name is Dr. Claire Carroll and I'm a speech and language therapist and a lecturer at the National University of Ireland in Galway, in Ireland, and delighted to be asked to be part of your series in giving you some more information about Down syndrome and speech, language and communication needs. So I suppose what's very important here for your listeners and for your teachers is, I suppose, understanding really that when a child is born with Down syndrome, they're born with an extra copy of their 21st chromosome. And that's often where Down syndrome, what it's also called, is trisomy 21. And that's where it gets its name, I suppose. But it's called Down syndrome. And I suppose what's important for you to consider then is that if you meet a child who has Down syndrome, that they will be neurologically diverse to other children. And I suppose this diversity means that there'll be diversity in terms of their speech development and speech skills. So in terms of how clear they are in their talking, and also in terms of can they speak clearly, can they speak in a way that other people can understand. Also, they will have diversity in terms of their language development and their language skills. And when we talk about language, we talk about not only their understanding, but also being able to express themselves. So being able to join words together into sentences, to make stories, and to have conversations. And within these stories and within making these sentences, do they know and choose the right words to explain what they want to say? And also in terms of understanding, can they understand and make sense of what people say? So for children with Down syndrome, these areas are going to be, challenging. They'll be different. And also they're in other areas like memory, their own memory skills, their retention skills, and their motor skills will also be diverse. And I suppose what is important to understand here is that just because you have a diagnosis of Down syndrome, your profile is unique, your personality is unique, the way the child's speech will be unique, their language will be unique, and so on, and also their ability to communicate. And I suppose a very important piece for our children and young people with Down syndrome is that their social skills are often an area of strength. They can be very friendly, and what this does, I suppose, it helps in terms of their ability to get their point across in terms of using their body language and their facial expression, and using these skills, but also understanding these skills. So they're very visual learning is an area of strength, and their visual awareness is an area of strength. So we need to consider this when we're thinking about what we can do and how we can support these children in your classrooms. And I suppose what's very important is that you as a teacher in your role, you know a lot about these children in terms of you're seeing them in an environment in a classroom setting with other children. And what's important is that, like for all children, I suppose one of your jobs is really to help students by creating opportunities for them to express themselves, to have opinions and to make decisions. So just like for all other children, but something that's very, very important for our children who have, I suppose, this neurological diversity or difference in terms of their abilities, in terms of their speech and their language and their communication, we look at sort of other ways that maybe might help. So again, we're kind of thinking about their method of communication. So for some children, they may use sign language, they may use pictures, they may use technology. So they might have an iPad or a phone with particular apps on them that when they point to a picture, it speaks for them. So they have this voice output system. So this is important for you, is to know what method of communication works best for this child. How good is their talk? Can they use sentences? So you need to know a little bit more about that. You also need to know about how they use their communication. So do they use this device, maybe like an iPad? Do they use this app to communicate? Do they only use it at home? Do they use it outside? Can they use it in school? And you also want to know a little bit more about what symbols that they may recognise. Some children, they need real objects, pictures of real objects. Other children, it's okay to have pictures of with symbols and with drawings. And so on. So this will be very, very important. But also a child can have a method of communication. They may also know how to access it. But also I think they also need to have interaction strategies, like starting conversations, taking turns, and knowing if they need to repair the conversation. So this is often called a term that you may be familiar with is assistive technology. And within assistive technology, this can support people to access, I suppose, their rights to communicate. And augmentative and alternative communication is a term that we use in speech and language therapy, AAC. And this is again something that can augment what somebody has already. So it kind of gives them another way to make a choice or to share a story. So I think for you what's important is to be able to offer somebody choices and to use visuals. And I think you may be good at this already, but if it's not something that you're considering, have visual schedules, use pictures, offer choices to your students. And also consider the actual activity, because if you can relate to the activity, if you've got some idea about this activity, then you might be more motivated to do it. And also competence in the activity. If I know that I can't do something, I might not be motivated to do it. So again, we've got to consider what can we do to help this child build their confidence, build their competence in this activity. So that's important. Also, it's important to know what preferences, what likes they have, what activities do they enjoy, how do they participate. So I suppose the key thing that I would like to share with you really is that everybody has a right to use whatever method they have of communication, and we have a big job as the partner in the conversation to help. And I think for you, acknowledging the person is what's important. Adjusting your communication style, also important. Use every means that you have, pictures, sign language if you have it. Love would be a keyword signing system that can be used, so you could look into that to see could you learn the signs. Sometimes children have a communication passport, which is like an information booklet that helps communication partners know about the person, what they like, who's in their family, but also what helps me to communicate. So that might be something for you. And also really just taking time with the person, listening to them. And by doing these three things, acknowledging the person, adjusting your communication style, and taking time to listen to the person, you're supporting their communication rights. And these are three pieces that Sharon McLeod, a researcher and speech and language pathologist in Australia, would really, I suppose, suggest or recommend, if you like, to support the communication rights for people with speech, language and communication needs. So I think really, what do we want for all our children, but particularly if we're thinking about our children with Down syndrome who are attending school, who are in your classrooms, they want to feel connected with you, connected with their peers, and they want to feel acknowledged, and they want to feel listened to. So I think you can do that. You may need support from the parents to understand a little bit more. You might need support from other teachers, those special ed teachers that you might have in your classroom. So I think and obviously from a speech and language therapist or an occupational therapist or a psychologist. So having a range of people to really help you to understand the child better, particularly about what motivates them, what activities they like, and how they participate in those activities, and then that you can learn from all these other people, and then they can learn from you, because you'll be sharing information about what and how they engage in the classroom. Okay, thank you very much for listening.